Welcome back. I'm Mary Thaler.
And I'm Geoffrey Edwards. This is Writing Off the Deep End.
And this time we're going to be talking about communities of writers.
Writing communities and how, sort of supports of communities, how we can get support and what kinds of support one can get through these communities.
So writing is often a very solitary activity.
Yeah.
Why do we feel a need to look for other people?
You mean aside from the audience that you might one day want to get, the readers, right? So,
An imagined reader in your head, at least.
Right.
But sometimes we really need to go out and seek
And you
real
get depressed at this business. You go through dark passages.
Yeah. Okay. So being alone too much as a writer is something we all go through.
Yeah. And I suppose some writers probably have a very active social life, but many of us tend to hunker down at the writing, and the social life sometimes goes by the wayside a bit, right? So it's nice to have a community of people. And also, just like this conversation here is such a support,
That's true.
I think, to each of us in our own writing.
Yeah.
So this is with the viewer, but also with each other.
That's right. That we each do our projects alone, but this is the thing that we do.
And as we've said, we love to talk about writing, so if we can get together with other people and talk about writing,
it's even better.
Yeah. In fact, we were recently together at a gathering of Quebec City Anglophone, so English speaking or English people writing in English. So it was an organization that works in this area.
Yeah, it wasn't a large community.
But we met some very different writers there compared to what we tend. I mean, we're different from each other, but even compared to what we do, we met freelancers who've been in the business for years. We met a guy who does movie scripts who's shifted into novels. And so it's a very different kinds of people.
And that's probably part of the benefit of finding a writing community too, is that you're exposing yourself to different ways of doing writing.
Right, and different professional practices, right? So some of these had their own networks as well. So
So here's a question. At what point in your writing process is it most important to have a community? Are there parts that are more solitary and other parts where you absolutely need support?
Well, it depends on the support, I guess, because I can remember years ago when I took part in several sort of writers' groups at the time, and they really didn't get me very far. So it was this kind of critiquing each other's work, and I didn't find it very useful.
If you get the wrong kind of feedback at the wrong moment, is what I'm hearing, it can kill a project in a sense.
Or
motivation to work on it.
You can lose some of the motivation to be in the group. But more recently, in the kinds of writing groups that you've brought me involved with, like the National Novel Writing Month group, I find that very supportive. But there's no critiquing going on. It's more coaching each other to write in together time, right?
Yeah. Is there a moment when you want critique?
Oh yes. I mean, I brought you into a writers group that I'm involved in, an online writers group where we critique each other's work, and that has been extremely useful.
Okay, so what was the difference?
Well, first of all, I actually had a novel to present, so I mean, I actually had a piece of writing that I was reasonably happy with.
Yeah.
And therefore the critique back was, on the button for the kinds of things that I needed, and also, we were working with really good writers with really good insights. So it was, and people that I trust. So that also had a lot to do with its utility for me.
One of the reasons why this question is interesting to me, this leads into the next question that I wanted to ask, which is how do we make ourselves good community members? I mean, we get a lot from our communities, and we'd like to be a part of our communities, give to the communities as well as receive. So so what can we do when it's our turn to give?
So clearly we can
support.
critique, right? So that's one
Yeah.
level but that's like critiquing somebody else's writing it's a learning process, because when you critique somebody else's writing, you learn about your own writing at the same time. Not directly, but kind of indirectly.
Yeah.
You learn about how to judge what is good and what is bad, and then you can apply that lesson to your own writing, right?
But obviously you'd like to be, I mean, you've talked about how some of it was helpful to you and some of it wasn't. I mean, when we do it ourselves, we'd like to be helpful to the person, which is why I wish we could put our finger on that.
Yeah.
What makes the difference? Between.
I'm just yesterday. I'm involved. I was involved for a number of years with an online group of science fiction writers, and the person who was leading it got tired of managing it and stepped back, and so it kind of fell apart for a little while. But it's now back on Facebook.
Okay.
And so I just got the invitation to join back into the group on Facebook, and there is a requirement to be forthcoming when people ask for things, right? So if they want somebody to read, then you're expected to take the time to read and give feedback.
Yeah.
So that's.
We've talked a lot about critiquing other people's writing, but obviously that's only one way that you can interact with other writers in the community.
So can you give some other examples from your own experience?
We touched on encouragement, that feeling of discouragement that you feel you've been alone and writing for a long time. So just being with other writers that you feel understand that moral boost that you get. I think we can help each other be excited about writing. You can get, you can see what other people are doing and be inspired by it, or you can just feel the energy of them doing something they love, and it reminds you that you love what you do too. Those are all benefits that we get from our writing community.
Some people, another community that that you brought me into is the community of people who do the 3-day novel contest. So this is it's a contest where, we can talk about contest another time, but it's a contest where you write a novel in 3 days over the Labor Day weekend, and there are about 400 or 500 people in different parts of the world who participate in this contest every year. And because it's done at the same time, there are messages exchanged between the people who are doing the exercises.
Are you in contact with them somehow?
So on Twitter, for instance, there are lots of exchanges of messages on Twitter between the people who are saying, another 4 hours and I've done another 5,000 words, and so you get these sort of, or I'm really excited about this section that I'm writing, or I'm having trouble with this section, and explaining a little bit about what this section is. Yeah. And I find some of the people that exchange on that, I find very inspirational. Yeah. Not necessarily because I would do exactly what they're doing, but I find they have practices or approaches to things that I find really interesting.
You learn from what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's neat. Yeah. Do you find Twitter, I know for a lot of writers, Twitter is where they found community. Is that a community that you find works?
I didn't expect to, but I have to say Twitter has been gold for me.
Okay.
We're going to talk about residencies another time, but I found the residency application for the residency I did on Crete on Twitter through one of these contact communities. So, and exchanges with people and so forth. So.
That potential for just networking and exchanging information.
Yeah, it's very sort of Twitter. If you know Twitter, it's very light somehow. It's not. It's not something that you're really emotionally involved with, but
No.
it is interesting to
I'd say
get
it's
some
better
information.
not to become emotionally
Yeah.
involved with. I've seen a few people on Twitter who seem emotionally involved in their Twitter, and it doesn't seem to make them happy. But no, if you can do it lightly, it's a rapid, lighthearted.
So,
way.
can you think of some communities that you're involved in that I'm not involved with?
Oh, sure.
That are
I think one of the
illustrative?
nicest communities I ever got involved in was Expozine in Montreal.
Yeah.
So it's an annual zine fair where people who make their own zines of any kind, their own sort of handmade books, can go and rent a table and sell it. And I just remember going into that giant church hall and setting up my table, and I was next to a really lovely woman who was there with her daughter. You know, I had a sense of being in a multi-generational space, and I was alone, so I couldn't get up and wander around as much as I could because I had to stay at my table and sell mine. But the woman next to me took care of it, and I walked around, and just the joy in that room was pretty amazing. I didn't know anybody there, but so many people came up to my table and said encouraging things to me. It made me feel good about the thing that I had made, and so I remember that very strongly, and I want to go back because even though it was a one-day kind of thing, I had the sense of being surrounded by other creators doing amazing things. So I think that's about all we have to say about community.
For this time.
Mm-hmm.
And next time we're planning to talk about these residencies.
So I just recently got back from a trip to do some writing in the United States, and Geoffrey just got back
From a trip to do writing in Crete. So
Yes.
we're going to share a little snippet of some of the video footage that we acquired from these different residences and talk about how they were helpful in the writing process and what we learned from them and this kind of thing.
Yeah, so tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you soon.
See you next time. Bye-bye.